I am Eleanor, 42 years old, and until last week, I thought being the responsible daughter meant something. I believed that reliable was a compliment, not a life sentence. For my entire adult life, I thought all those years of showing up, fixing problems, bailing my brother out, and never asking for anything in return had earned me a permanent place at the table. I was the rock. I was the one who checked the boxes, got the promotions, and paid my bills on time. I was the one they called when they had a problem. Then the phone call came. My mother, Margaret, her voice, a sickly sweet blend of false cheer and pity, asked me to sit this one out. The annual 4th of July reunion. The one I always organized. The one I always bought the burgers for. The one I always cleaned up after was being reserved for my younger brother, Mark. They wanted a quiet holiday with his struggling family. For 30 years, I have been helpless against that single word, struggling. It was the magic excuse that made all of Mark's needs, Mark's whims, and Mark's failures more important than my own. His stress was a crisis. My stress was just Tuesday. I was helpless because I was legally and emotionally bound to a role I had never auditioned for, the capable, invisible support beam. But this time is different. They have no idea I spent the last year secretly bringing my grandfather's legacy back to life. They don't know I own the lake cabin, and they are about to learn that their quiet holiday will be a very lonely one. The phone buzzed on my desk on a Tuesday afternoon. I was neck-deep in quarterly reports, the numbers blurring into a meaningless spreadsheet. I rubbed my temples, but smiled when I saw Mom on the screen. It was 2 weeks before the 4th. I picked it up, expecting the usual logistics chat. "Eleanor, honey, how are you?" Her voice was high and light, the one she used when she was about to ask for something difficult, the one that always set my teeth on edge. "I'm fine. Mom, just finishing up at work. What's on your mind? Do you need me to pick up the fireworks this year? Or am I on burger and bun duty? Oh, well, that's actually what I'm calling about." A little nervous laugh. "Dad and I were talking, and you know, your brother Mark has just been so stressed lately." I stopped typing. My hand froze on the mouse. A cold, familiar feeling started to creep up my spine, like icy water. "Stressed," I said, my voice flat. "What's new?" "Eleanor, don't be like that," she chided gently, the fake disappointment clear in her tone. "It's not easy for him. His business is on thin ice, and Susan is just overwhelmed with the kids. They just need a calm weekend. A real family weekend. You know." My hand tightened on my pen. The plastic creaked. I knew exactly where this was going. I could see the words forming, the path being laid. And, well, we just think a big, loud reunion with everyone. Aunt Clara, the cousins. It's the last thing they need. We want to give them a peaceful 4th, just them, just us. She paused, and then the killing blow. "So, we were thinking, maybe you could sit this one out, just this once." I stared at the framed print on my office wall, a simple landscape of a lake. My throat felt like it was closing. Sit this one out. It wasn't a request. It was a dismissal. A banishment. "You're so independent," she continued, her voice softening as she delivered the insult. "You always have plans. You always understand. You understand." It was the tax I paid for being capable. It was the thanks I got for never needing them. I was the strong one, which meant I didn't get to be the included one. The air in the room felt thick and still. I could hear the hum of my computer, the ticking of the clock on the wall. Each tick felt like a hammer blow against my chest. "Sit this out. Eleanor, honey. Are you there? Did you hear me?" I closed my eyes. I focused on my breathing, the way Dr. Lee had taught me. Inhale for 4. Hold for 4. Exhale for 6. I would not give her an argument. I would not raise my voice. I would not cry. I would not hand her the satisfaction of calling me dramatic. the label she always slapped on me whenever I showed a flicker of my own needs. I had spent 40 years trying to be perfect enough, successful enough, helpful enough to finally be seen, and in 30 seconds, she had made me invisible. Enjoy your holiday. Mom, I said. My voice was quiet, steady, and held nothing. It was as empty as I felt. Oh, good. The relief in her voice was sickening. I knew you'd understand. You're a lifesaver. Wheel. I pressed the end button, cutting her off mid-sentence. I set the phone down on the desk as if it were something fragile, something poisoned. The silence that rushed in was absolute. The memories came then, not as gentle reminders, but as sharp, stinging cuts. Me, 22 years old, at my college graduation. I had 2 honors cords around my neck. I scanned the empty seats in the front row. The ones I had saved? My program was clutched in my hand. They had left halfway through the ceremony. A text message. That's all I got. Mark locked his keys in his car 2 towns over. Real emergency. Have to go. See you at home. A 19-year-old locking his keys in his car was a real emergency. My graduation was an inconvenience. I found my own ride home. Me, Arshaba, at that steakhouse dinner, the one I had paid for. I was so proud. Mom, Dad, I did it. I bought my first condo. My mother nodded, smiling politely. That's nice. Dear. Before I could even say where it was, my father had waved his hand. That's great. Honey. Now. Mark, he said, turning his entire body to my brother. Let's talk about this. This idea you have for a t-shirt company. Your mother and I think you need some real seed money. I watched them write a check that night. Right there at the table. The number on it was more than my entire down payment. The one I had saved for 5 years by living on ramen and never taking a vacation. The t-shirt company folded in 6 months. And they bailed him out again. Last Thanksgiving, I had driven 4 hours in a dangerous snowstorm. When I arrived, shaking and cold, they were all in the living room. My father, my mother, and Mark were admiring Mark's new, ridiculously overpriced flat-screen TV. The game looks incredible on this. My father was booming. My mother hadn't even looked up. Just called out, Ellie, you're here. Can you give me a hand in the kitchen? I'm swamped. I spent the next 3 hours peeling potatoes and washing dishes, while Mark recovered from the stress of driving from his house, which was 10 minutes away. It was always like this. I was the reliable, sturdy, uncomplaining mule. Mark was the high-strung, sensitive thoroughbred who couldn't be burdened. I stood up from my desk and walked to the window, looking down at the Boston streets. The old hurt was there. Adieu, familiar ache in my chest. But something else was stirring underneath it. A cold, hard anger. It was an anger I had pushed down for decades. And then, I remembered. They didn't know my secret. Last spring, I had been browsing real estate listings online. A little fantasy. And then I saw it. Lakeside cabin. Tax auction. The photo was grainy. A sad picture of peeling paint and a sagging porch. But I knew that roofline. It was Grandpa Joe's cabin. The heron's nest. The place he had built with his own 2 hands. The place where I had spent every summer of my childhood. Learning to fish. Learning to identify birds. Feeling seen. The place my parents had inherited, and then abandoned. Letting it fall into ruin because Mark is allergic to mildew, and it's too far to drive. They had let it go for back taxes. They hadn't even told me. I bought it. I used the money from a bonus I'd never told them about. Because I knew they'd just call it extra, and suggest I help Mark with his credit card debt. For the last 14 months, I had poured my real life into that place. I drove 3 hours every Friday night. I found an old contractor in the nearby town, a man named Pete, who had known my grandfather. He helped me fix the foundation and the roof, calling it good bones. But the rest I did it myself. I tore out the moldingy carpet. I sanded the original wide plank pine floors until my hands were raw and my shoulders ached. I found my grandfather's old workbench in the shed, covered in dust, and I restored it. I reglazed every single one of the 27 warped windows. I painted every wall. I fixed the crumbling stone fireplace. It wasn't a shack anymore. It was beautiful. It was solid. It was mine. I had planned to tell them all at the 4th of July. I had laminated photos. I was going to invite them up for August. I thought this would finally be the thing. The one achievement they couldn't ignore. How stupid. I let out a short, sharp laugh that sounded more like a bark. The irony was bitter. They hadn't just excluded me. They had given me the perfect opportunity. My therapist, Dr. Lee, had been telling me for years, Eleanor, you can't change their behavior. You can only change your response. My response? I picked up my phone again. The hurt was still there, but it was being pushed aside by a hot, thrilling surge of possibility. I wasn't going to fight for a scrap of their attention. I was going to build my own fire. I scrolled past my mother's name, my father's, my brother's. My thumb stopped on Aunt Clara, my grandfather's sister, the 70-year-old firecracker who always sent me cards for my work anniversaries, the one who called me for advice. My fingers flew across the screen. Hi, Aunt Clara. I know this is last minute, but what are you doing for the 4th? I have a major surprise, and it involves Grandpa Joe's cabin. A reply came back in less than a minute. Eleanor, I was just dreading going to your parents. The drama with Mark is exhausting. What's going on? I smiled. A real smile this time. I'll call you. But pack a bag. The heron's nest is back. A new message popped up from my cousin Ben. Mom just said you're doing something at the lake. Is that true? Are we grilling on the old stone pit? Then Chloe. Ben says the cabin is back. On my way. I am in. I'm bringing my potato salad. This wasn't just an alternative plan. This was a declaration. This was the year the capable daughter finally took charge. This was the year I was having my own family reunion. At my own house. And my parents were not invited. The next morning, I called in sick to work. I told my boss I had a family emergency. Which wasn't a lie. This was an emergency of the self. A rescue mission for the part of me my parents had tried to discard. I spent the morning making a detailed shopping list. Not for the cheap bulk items my mother always assigned me, but for a feast. I was planning a full 4th of July menu. Not just burgers, but Grandpa Joe's secret recipe barbecue ribs, corn on the cob dripping with butter, Chloe's famous potato salad, and a blueberry cobbler made with fresh, local berries. I was buzzing with an energy I hadn't felt in years. A sharp, focused excitement that pushed the old hurt aside. My first call was to Aunt Clara. She picked up on the second ring, her voice already sounding tired. Eleanor. Hello. Are you ready for the 4th? That's what I'm calling about. Aunt Clara. I'm not going to Mom and Dad's. Oh, the interest in her voice was immediate. Did they finally push you too far? They asked me to sit this one out so Mark could have a quiet holiday. I said, the words still tasting like ash. Aunt Clara let out a very unladylike snort. A quiet holiday. Good Lord. They've been using that boy's stress as a weapon for 30 years. So, you're free. Come to my place. We'll drink gin and complain. I have a better idea, I said, unable to keep the smile out of my voice. What do you know about Grandpa Joe's cabin? The heron's nest, oh. Honey. Her voice softened. I haven't been there in ages. Your parents just let it go. Such a shame. Your grandfather loved that place. He did. And I couldn't let it disappear. Aunt Clara. I bought it. It was about to be auctioned for back taxes last year. I bought it. And I've been fixing it up. It's done. The line went silent for a moment. I could hear her sharp intake of breath. When she spoke, her voice was thick with emotion. Eleanor. You. You bought it. Oh, my dear girl. She was crying. I'd never heard her cry. Your grandfather. He would be so proud of you. Her words hit me with the force of a physical blow. A validation so pure and simple, it almost brought me to tears. Margaret and Arthur. They just let it go. They never said a word. They never mentioned it. I said, my voice tight. But that doesn't matter. It's safe now. And I'm having a party. A real 4th. Like we used to. I'm grilling. I'm making ribs. Can you come? Can I come? She boomed, her energy returning like a thunderclap. I'll be there if I have to walk. I am so tired of walking on eggshells around your mother's arrangements for Mark. It's like we all have to pretend he's a fragile genius while he wastes his life. This is wonderful. I'll bring my deviled eggs. The good ones with the paprika. That one yes felt like a shield. It was the first brick in my new foundation. I called my cousins next. Ben, a high school history teacher in Chicago, answered immediately. Ellie, what's up? I was just about to text you to see who's on firework duty. Change of plans. Ben, I'm not going to Aunt Margaret's. Oh, thank God, he breathed. Is it the Mark show again? Because I don't know if I can take another year of Uncle Arthur explaining his brilliant but misunderstood business plan. That's exactly it. So I'm doing my own thing. At the Heron's Nest. What? The cabin? I thought that place was condemned. It was. I laughed. I've spent a year restoring it. It's true. I'm there right now. And I need someone to man the grill. Are you kidding? I'm booking my flight right now? He said. Do Mom and Dad know? I mean, your mom. Aunt Margaret. Actually, I said, taking a small, satisfied breath. They've decided to have a quiet holiday this year with just Mark's family. So I'm just filling the gap. There was a long pause. Then Ben said, his voice serious. Ellie, it's about damn time. You've been taking their nonsense for decades. We are so in. Chloe is here. I'll put you on speaker. She's going to lose her mind. Chloe's shriek was deafening. The cabin. The tree swing is the old tree swing. Still there, the dock. The tree is. But I had to build a new swing. I said, it's safe now. I promise. The dock is brand new. So you're in. We're already there. Oh, this is the best news I've had all year. Mom and Dad's reunion has been a funeral for 10 years. All that tension with Uncle Arthur. A real 4th. Yes, wherein I'm bringing my potato salad. As the RSVPs came in, one yes after another, Uncle David and Aunt Patricia, my other cousins from Seattle. I felt something healing inside me. These people my real family valued me. They would change their plans. Book, last-minute travel, and drive for hours. Just because I asked. Their excitement was a balm on the raw wound my mother had inflicted. The most surprising call came 3 days later. I was loading my car with coolers, feeling a deep sense of calm, when an unknown number flashed. I answered cautiously. Hello, Eleanor. It's Susan, Mark's wife. My blood ran cold. I stopped, a case of water halfway into my trunk. Susan. Hi. We were not friends. We were barely acquaintances. Our interactions limited to polite nods over cold turkey and strained smiles at Christmas. Look, I know this is weird, she said, her voice fast and thin, like a wire stretched too tight. Mark doesn't know I'm calling you. Please don't tell him. Or your parents. Okay, I said slowly, my guard all the way up. I heard a rumor. From your cousin Chloe's Facebook. She posted something vague about the lake and the old days. Are you doing something for the 4th? I'm hosting a get-together at my grandfather's cabin. Yes. I kept my voice neutral. Susan let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. Oh my God. You're kidding. The cabin Mark told me that place fell into the ground years ago. He said it was worthless. It didn't. I said, I've been restoring it. Look, Eleanor. She rushed on. Things are not good here. Your parents are driving me insane. They promised to help us with a down payment on a house. And now they're holding it over our heads. They're demanding we spend this whole weekend with them. Just sitting in their house. Listening to your father lecture Mark. And if we don't, they're revisiting the offer. Mark is a wreck. He's just pacing. He's yelling at the kids. I didn't know what to say. This was a side of the story I had never considered. I'd always seen them as a unit, Mark and Susan and the kids. The black hole that sucked up all the family's resources. I know it's complicated. Susan continued, her voice dropping to a whisper. I know how they treat you. I see it. You think I don't. I'm trapped in it. But would there be room for us? For me and the kids? Anyway, I can't. I can't face another holiday with them. Eleanor. I just can't. My first instinct was sharp and brutal. No. This was my space. This was my sanctuary. Free of the Mark and Mom and Dad drama. Inviting him would be like inviting the rot back in. He was the reason I'd been excluded. But then I thought of her kids. Lily and Sam. I thought of Susan's desperate voice. This wasn't the golden boy asking for a favor. This was his trapped wife. Susan. I don't know. I said honestly. This is the first time I'm doing this. I need this to be peaceful. I can't have the old dynamic here. I can't have him show up and act like he's the center of it all. He won't, she said, her voice rising. They won't be there. That's the whole point. Without them. He's different. Ellie. He's just lost. Please. The kids would be so happy to be at a lake. I would be. Let me think about it and call you back, I said. My hands were shaking. I immediately called Aunt Clara. You will not believe who just called me. I explained the situation. Am I crazy to even consider this? I asked. It's inviting the wolf into the henhouse. Isn't it? Aunt Clara was quiet for a long moment. Well, she said finally, is the wolf the same animal when the zookeepers aren't there? Your parents create that dynamic. Eleanor. They make you the mule and him the thoroughbred. They've done it since you were children. What happens when you're all just people? In a new place. A place that's yours. Her question stopped me. In my cabin. I was the host. I was in charge. There would be no parents playing favorites. No father telling Mark how brilliant he was. No mother telling me to fetch him a drink. It's a risk, Aunt Clara added. But it's also a chance to see if your brother is a man or just his parents' puppet. It's up to you. Dear, but I trust your judgment. I took a deep breath. I thought about my nephews. I thought about what it meant to really build something new. I called Susan back. You can come, I said. All of you. But Susan. One condition. This is my house. My rules. This is a positive. Happy weekend. No drama. No. No complaining about Mom and Dad. We're leaving that behind. Understood, she said, her voice flooding with relief. Completely. Thank you, Eleanor. Thank you. We'll be there Saturday. I hung up, my heart pounding. This was either the best or the worst decision I had ever made. I arrived at the cabin late that night. The drive had been long, but as I turned down the familiar gravel road, the trees opening up to reveal the dark silhouette of the house, I felt a profound sense of peace. I flipped the switch on the porch, and a warm yellow light spilled out. It was perfect. I had put my grandfather's old, worn armchair next to the fireplace I had rebuilt. The wide plank floors gleamed. The kitchen was stocked. The counters clean. I had framed old black and white photos of my grandfather, of Aunt Clara, and of me as a little girl on the dock, and hung them on the walls. This wasn't just a house. It was a testament. It was proof that I could not only survive, but I could build. The next day, the family started to arrive. Aunt Clara was first, her car stuffed with coolers. "Oh, Eleanor," she said, standing on the porch with her hand over her mouth. "Oh, honey, you brought it back. He's here. I can feel him." Ben and Chloe arrived together, tumbling out of the car like they were kids again. It's just like I remember. But better," Chloe shouted, running for the new tree swing. "You did this. You did all this." Ben just walked down to the new dock, stood at the end, and took a deep, slow breath. He turned and gave me a look of pure gratitude. We spent the day laughing, cooking, and settling in. Uncle David and Aunt Patricia, my father's brother and his wife, arrived, adding to the joyful noise. It felt right. It felt like a homecoming. There was no tension, no walking on eggshells, just genuine happiness. Late in the afternoon, as we were shucking corn on the deck, and Aunt Clara was telling a story about Grandpa Joe, a car I didn't recognize pulled in. Mark's minivan. The music and laughter on the deck died down. We all watched as they parked. I stood up, wiping my hands on my apron. This was the moment. I walked to the edge of the deck to meet them. Mark climbed out of the minivan first. He looked thinner than I remembered, and pale. He stood on the gravel, just staring at the cabin, his mouth slightly open. He looked from the new roof to the painted porch to the stone chimney, which was now solid and clean. He looked completely bewildered, as if he'd been dropped into a place he recognized but couldn't understand. Susan got out next, holding her purse in front of her like a shield. She looked at me with a mix of fear and gratitude. "Eleanor," she said, her voice small. It's beautiful." Then the tension broke. The back doors of the minivan burst open, and Lily, Joe, and Sam, spilled out. Aunt Ellie Sam shouted, running straight for me. "Is there a lake?" Mom said there's a lake. "There is," I said, kneeling to hug him. "And a dock you can fish off of." "Yes," he screamed, and ran past me toward the sound of the water. "Sam, wait," Susan called. But Chloe, my cousin, was already moving. "I've got him," she yelled cheerfully. "Come on, kid. I'll show you where the worms are." Lily, quieter, walked up to me and looked at the cabin. "It smells like wood," she said. "That's because it is." I smiled. "Your great-grandfather built it." I stood up and faced my brother. He was still standing by his car, his hands shoved deep in his pockets. He looked lost. All the usual swagger, the entitled confidence that our parents usually wrapped him in, was gone. Here, he was just, "Mark, you did this." "Ellie?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. He gestured to the house. "All of it. I had help with the roof." I said simply, "Welcome to the heron's nest." "Mark, I'm glad you could make it." He just nodded, unable to meet my eyes. He looked down at his shoes. "Yeah, thanks. Thanks for, go get settled," I said, turning back to the deck. "We're putting the ribs on in an hour. There's beer in the cooler." The rest of the evening was a gentle test. Mark was quiet. He sat on the edge of the deck, nursing a single beer, watching everyone. He watched Ben and me man the grill, laughing as we argued over the sauce. He watched Aunt Clara teaching Lily how to play checkers. He watched Susan, his wife, who was sitting with Aunt Patricia, deep in a conversation that, for the first time I had ever seen, involved Susan laughing, a real, relaxed laugh. When the food was ready, we all gathered around the long picnic tables I had set up. The conversation was loud and easy. People shared stories about Grandpa Joe. Ben told a hilarious story about his teaching job. There were no hierarchies. No one was performing for our parents' approval. We were just family. I watched Mark. He sat with his kids. And he was different. He was present. He helped Sam cut his food. He listened when Lily told him a long, rambling story about a frog she'd seen. He wasn't checking his phone. He wasn't sighing about money. He wasn't complaining about being stressed. He just was. The 4th of July itself was perfect. The day dawned clear and hot. The house came to life slowly, with the smell of coffee and bacon. We divided into teams. Ben and Uncle David took the kids out on the lake in the rowboat I'd bought. Chloe and I prepped for the main BBQ. Aunt Clara sat on the porch, supervising, which meant she told stories and made sure no one's glass was empty. Mark and Susan emerged late. I saw Mark hesitate at the kitchen door, as if he was waiting for an assignment, or waiting to be told he was in the way. "Hey, Mark," I called over, keeping my voice light. "I can't get the big cooler down the deck stairs. Can you give me a hand?" He looked surprised, then nodded. "Yeah, sure." We carried it down to the dock together. It was heavy. When we set it down, we stood there for a moment, just looking at the water. The kids were shrieking and splashing at the shallow end. I don't remember it being this nice, he said. "It wasn't," I said. "It was a wreck. Mom and Dad hadn't paid the taxes in 3 years. It was on the auction block." His head snapped around to look at me. "What? They told me they sold it because the foundation was cracked." "The foundation was fine. It just needed work. Like everything else." He was quiet, processing this. "And you? You just bought it." "I just bought it." "Why didn't you tell anyone? Would you have listened?" I asked. It wasn't an accusation, just a fact. Or would Mom have told me I was bragging and should have used the money to help you with your business? He flinched. He had no answer. He just looked back at the water. "She's right. You know," he said, so quietly, I almost missed it. "Susan. She's been telling me for years that it's all messed up. How they are. I guess I didn't want to see it." "Well," I said, clapping him on the shoulder. "Now you're here. Let's go swim." That afternoon was one of the best of my life. The whole family, my whole family, was laughing, swimming, and eating. The food was delicious. The company was warm. There was no stress. There was no tension. There was no walking on eggshells. It was just joy. As the sun began to set, painting the lake in shades of orange and purple, we started getting ready for the fireworks. We gathered blankets on the lawn facing the lake. Ben and I were setting up the box of fireworks on the dock. The kids were running around with sparklers. And then, it happened. A phone came, then another, and another. It was like a switch had been thrown. The magic, peaceful bubble burst. Everyone looked down at their screens. Aunt Clara looked up at me, her face grim. "It's from your mother." "Me too," Ben said. "Me 3, said Chloe. I pulled my own phone out. A group text from Mom. "We're starting the BBQ, Mark. Where are you? You said you'd be here by 5. Getting worried." Another one. 2 minutes later, Arthur is getting very upset. "This isn't funny. Mark." And then, a text to me. "Just to me, Eleanor. Have you heard from your brother? He's ruining the holiday. I knew we should have just had him stay with us." Before I could even process the absurdity, Mark's phone, which was on the picnic table, began to ring. The ringtone was loud and obnoxious in the sudden quiet. Everyone looked at it. The screen glowed with one word, Mom. It rang again. Mark just stared at it, his face pale. Susan looked at him, then at me. "Mark," I said, my voice calm and steady. "Are you going to answer that?" He looked at me, his eyes wide. like a cornered animal. I don't know what to say. Say the truth, I said. I walked over, picked up the phone, and hit accept. Then I pressed the speakerphone button. Mark, my mother's voice shrieked from the phone, sharp and panicked. Mark, where are you? We've been waiting for hours. Your father is beside himself. We've got all this food. Mark looked at me, his eyes pleading. I just nodded. Go on. He took a shaky breath. Hi. Mom. Don't hi. Mom. Me. Where are you? I'm at the lake. Mom. The lake. What lake? What are you talking about? I'm at Grandpa's cabin, he said, his voice getting a little stronger. The silence on the other end was instant. It stretched for a full 10 seconds. When she finally spoke, her voice was dripping with confusion and venom. What? That old shack? Why on earth would you be there? It's falling down. I stepped forward and took the phone from Mark's hand. It's not a shack anymore. Mom, I said, my voice clear and carrying, in the quiet evening air. Eleanor, what? Why are you there? I'm here because I bought it, and I restored it. It's my home now, and we're all here. Aunt Clara, Ben, Chloe, Uncle David, Aunt Patricia. Everyone. Another profound silence. I could almost hear her mind snapping, trying to reform the picture of her world. Everyone, she whispered. Then her voice rose, cracking with disbelief and fury. Everyone, you. You ruined the 4th of July. You stole my family. I almost laughed. It was so predictable. No, I said, my voice as calm as the lake in front of me. You told me to skip it. You said you wanted a quiet day with Mark. I'm just giving you what you asked for. I looked at Ben, who was holding the lighter. He grinned at me. We have to go now. Mom, I said. The fireworks are starting. I pressed the end button, cutting off the shriek that was just beginning. I set the phone down. Screen down. On the table. The silence held for a beat. Then, Aunt Clara raised her glass of lemonade. Well, then, she said, her voice booming, to the heron's nest. And to Eleanor. To Eleanor, everyone cheered. Ben lit the first fuse. With a loud whoosh, the first firework shot into the sky and exploded in a shower of red, white, and blue, reflecting in the water, and on the faces of my real family. The fireworks were spectacular. We all sat on the lawn, the children wrapped in blankets, their faces turned to the sky. With each explosion of color, a collective ooh rose from the group. The phones on the picnic table buzzed and chimed. Forgotten. My mother's, then my father's. Frantique. Angry texts and calls became a distant irrelevantoise. Mark sat a little apart, next to Susan. He watched the fireworks, but I also saw him watching his kids. He had his arm around Lily, and when a particularly loud one boomed, he pulled her in. Susan caught my eye from across the lawn and gave me a small, watery smile. When the finale was over, a smoky silence settled over the lake. That, Aunt Clara declared, was a real 4th of July. No one moved to go inside. We just sat in the peaceful dark, savoring the feeling of being together, with no strings attached, no roles to play. The next morning, the house was filled with the smell of coffee and a comfortable Blacksley sparely. Relaxed energy. People were packing, cleaning up, and exchanging long hugs. Next year, Ben said, squeezing me tight. This is the new tradition. You know that. Right. We're never going back to. That. I'm holding you to that, I said. Mark and Susan were the last to get ready. Mark approached me while Susan was loading the kids into the minivan. He stood awkwardly by the porch rail, his hands in his pockets. Ellie, he said. Mark. Oh. I just wanted to say, Thank you for letting us come. And he gestured to the house. This is incredible. What you did here. Grandpa loved this place. I said simply. Yeah. He swallowed, looking at the floor. I'm sorry. For all of it. For my part in it. I never saw it clearly. I let them. And I took it out on you. On Susan. I'm going to try to fix things. It wasn't a perfect apology, but it was real. It was the first real conversation we'd had in 20 years. I'd like that. Mark, I said, just as he turned to leave. A car engine roared, much too fast, down the gravel road. A large, black sedan. My father's car skidded to a stop right behind the minivan. My stomach dropped. Mark froze. Aunt Clara, who was about to leave, stopped her car and got out. My mother, Margaret, burst out of the passenger side before the car was even fully in park. Her face was a mask of thunder. My father, Arthur, emerged more slowly, his expression grim. So it's true, my mother hissed, her eyes sweeping over the beautiful, restored cabin. She looked at the new paint, the clean windows, the pots of flowers. Her face, instead of showing pride, just soured. You did steal everyone. Nobody was stolen. Margaret, Aunt Clara said, stepping forward. We came because we were invited. You were supposed to be at our house, my father boomed, pointing a finger at his brother, David, who was standing on the porch. All of you. I don't recall this being a mandatory summons. Arthur, Uncle David said, his voice calm. My mother turned her fury on me. And you? She spat. How could you, after we specifically told you we needed a quiet weekend? You did this to hurt us. You built this. This spite house. I built it, I said, my voice low and shaking, because Grandpa loved it. And you abandoned it. You let it rot, just like you were trying to do to me. That is not my father began. And you, my mother shrieked, turning on Mark. She seemed to see him for the first time. You betrayed us. We were waiting for you. We were worried. We had food. You left us alone. Mark flinched. I saw him shrink. The decades of conditioning pulling him back. His shoulders slumped. He looked at the ground. Mom, he mumbled. We just... Don't mom me. After all we've done for you. After all the money. All the support. This is how you repay us. By sneaking off with her. And that was it. The final thread snapped. Seeing him crumble. Seeing her wield her power. It extinguished the last flicker of fear I had. Stop it, I said. My voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the air like a knife. My mother stopped, her mouth open. Just stop, both of you. I walked down the porch steps until I was standing right in front of her. I am 42 years old. I am not a child, and I am not your mule. For my entire life, you have treated me as an appliance. The reliable one, the one who doesn't need anything, the one you could sit out because I understand. I looked at my father. You celebrate his failures while you ignore my successes. You've taught him that he's a perpetual victim. And you've taught me that my only value is in what I can do for him. That's not true, my mother cried. Isn't it, I said. You asked me to skip the holiday. You told me to. You didn't ask me. You informed me. You wanted a quiet day. You got exactly what you asked for. The fact that everyone else chose to be here. That's not on me. That is on you. My father stepped forward, his face red. You have no right to talk to your mother that way. Eleanor. I have every right, I said, and I didn't back down. This is my house. You are on my property, and you are not welcome here like this. They both stared, stunned into silence. They had never heard this from me. They had no script for this. Before they could recover, Mark, who had been standing frozen, took a deep breath. He stepped forward, putting himself between me and our parents. "Mom, Dad, stop," he said, his voice shaking. "Just stop. She's right." My mother looked like he had slapped her. "Mark, she's right," he said again, stronger. You've done this. You've played us against each other our whole lives. You've suffocated me. You've made me. This," he gestured to himself. "I'm 38 years old and I can't make a decision without worrying about what you'll say, or what you'll take away. And you," he turned to me, "you've been solid. And we just used you. And I let it happen. I'm sorry. Ellie. I'm so sorry." Susan was at his side, her hand on his back. My parents looked at their 2 children, united, standing in front of a house that represented a past they had discarded. They looked around at the faces of their family, their siblings, their nieces and nephews all watching them, not with anger, but with a quiet, sad finality. They had no power here. Their currency, guilt, money, obligation was worthless. My father looked at my mother. He seemed to shrink. The bluster was gone. He just looked like an old, confused man. "Get in the car. Margaret," he said quietly. "But, Arthur, get in the car." She looked at me one last time. Her eyes filled with a confusion so deep it was almost painful to see. Then she turned, got in the car, and slammed the door. My father got in, didn't look back, and drove away. The silence they left behind was vast. Aunt Clara came up and put her arm around me. "Well," she said, "that's that." And it was. The following months were different. My relationship with my parents was strained, limited to short, polite phone calls. They didn't apologize. They didn't acknowledge what happened. But they also didn't ask me for anything. The balance of power had shifted. The real change was with Mark. He and Susan started counseling. He got a real job, working for a logistics company. He called me, not to ask for money, but just to talk, to ask about my work, to tell me a funny story about Sam. It was fragile. It was new. But it was real. As the next 4th of July approached, I sent out one email. The Heron's Nest. July 4th. Ribs will be served. All are welcome. The yes replies flooded in, including one from Mark. And then, one from my mother. "We would like to come. If the invitation is still open." I stared at the email for a long time. All are welcome. Yes. Mom. It is. The day was beautiful. The cabin was packed. It was loud, and joyful, and full of life. Mark and Susan arrived with the kids, and Mark was carrying a toolbox. "The screen door on the porch is loose," he said to me. "I thought I'd, fix it." My parents arrived last. They were quiet, humbled. They brought a pie from a local bakery. They sat on the porch, and they watched. They watched their family interacting without them at the center. They watched Mark teaching his son to fish on the dock. They watched me, the host, the center, the person who had built this. Late in the afternoon, I found my father in the shed. He was standing in front of my grandfather's workbench, the one I had restored. His hand was resting on the smooth, oiled wood. "You kept his tools," he said quietly. "I kept everything," I said. He picked up an old, hand-carved chisel. He tried to teach me how to use these. I never had the patience. Mark, neither. He looked at the solid shelves I had built. The clean, organized space. He turned to me, and his eyes were wet. He would be so proud of this. "Eleanor, of what you've done. It's beautiful." He cleared his throat, struggling. I am proud of you. I looked at my father, really looked at him, and the last of the anger I'd been holding on to just dissolved. Thanks, Dad, I said. Later that evening, as the first fireworks went up, I stood on my deck, a cup of coffee in my hand. Aunt Clara was on one side, Mark on the other. My mother was inside, playing checkers with her granddaughter. I looked out at the water, at the faces of my family lit by the exploding colors, and I felt a peace I had been searching for my entire life. I hadn't just restored a house. I had restored a family, my real family, and I had finally, truly, come home. Have you ever had to draw a line in the sand and build your own traditions when the old ones just didn't work anymore? It's terrifying. But sometimes it's the only way to find where you truly belong. Let me know your own stories in the comments. We all have a family, but the ones we choose and the ones we build are often the most precious. Thank you for watching this story. If it resonated with you, please hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories just like this. And share it with someone who might need a reminder that it's never too late to build your own home.